Hi everybody. So we would like to have a first session on the use of SPSS. You can use the SPSS on campus, or you can also download a SPSS student version from the website from the link. Once you open the SPSS, so I'm going to give you one example of having a data set on a bunch of data on the test results of car crash. So we can see this is the SPSS interface. It has two tabs to the bottom. One is called Data View and one is called Variable View. And if we go to the Data View, we can see these are the raw data. It's similar to what you see in like those Excel files. Let's take a look at these data files here, these datas. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns here. First column is about the car, and second column is about size, which has been labeled by using numbers. Third, fourth, fifth, and seventh are like another bunch of numbers. So a lot of times you may need to understand what exactly these labels represents. Okay, so these are actually the variables. In order for us to understand the variables, we'll need to go to the variable view. So here what you see is these variables in variable view. So let's take a look at the variable view. The first column in the variable view tells you the name of these variables, which is consistent with what we see here on the very top of the data view. So variable name. And it is worth noting that for the variable name, you cannot put space in it if you want to separate two phrases, such as female L and female R. If you put space in between, the SPS is going to count this as one mistake or one error message. So in order to separate two phrases, you may want to put underscore in between. So that's about variable name. Secondly, for the type of variable, you can always click to the right part of this type, and you can see there is a selection of variable types. We can use numeric or string in this data set. So the first one, which is a car, the type is string, and that means basically we're using a string of phrases for this variable, which is in fact true if you look at this column. Okay, now for size, it is numeric type, and it is numeric type because we're using numbers to talk about these size. However, we want to put an important note here that even though this is numeric type, it doesn't mean size has to be quantitative. Third, fourth, and third to the sixth, we have HIC, chest, female L, female R. All of these are numeric, once again, because you see in the raw data, they are using numbers to represent those. For the widths and decimals, you can always choose to change the decimal, number of decimals, or how long this string is. Next, we want to talk about the column of label. And a lot of times, it's hard for you to understand what exactly this variable is by looking at its name. So you can put some labels, some information on these variables in the column of label. For the label, it is okay if you put space in between. So such as the car, in fact, this is about the car model. Size, this is actually talking about the size of the car. HIC, by reading the label, you know it's about a head injury. Chest, it's about the chest injury as well. Female L, female R is talking about load on the left female and load on the right female during a car crash. Over next, we want to look at the column of values. Okay. You probably have noticed that in the size, the variable size, it has values. So if you take a look at these values, you can see that 1 represents small, 2 represents mid-size, 3 represents large. So what happens is, even though you see these 1, 2, 3 in the variable of size, that tell us actually Honda Civic is a small size, and Honda Accord is medium size, and for example, here we have Lincoln Town that is large sized. So size is actually can be put into different categories: small, medium, and large. So size here is actually a categorical data, even though we're using numerical numbers to represent that in SPSS. Okay, and as of now, that's very basic information we need to know, and for this column it tells you the measure. So I'd like to show you how we can use SPSS to do simple analysis for these variables. When we want to do analysis, we can go to Analyze on the very top, Descriptive Statistics, and go to Frequencies. So what you will be having is you would have the list of these variables in the left box. And if you want to operate on certain variables, you can move it to the right. So suppose I want to know more about the car size, so I can move the car size to the right. As of now, we are just going to do the easiest one. Let's just display frequency tables. Hit OK. Once you hit OK, a output window is going to appear. It's going to tell you the result of your analysis. So it gives us two tables. First, it tells you there are 21 data being considered, okay, and all of these data are valid. The second table tells you about the car size, okay, which again, this is about the label of that variable, right, car size. So you guys remember the number 1 represents small. So there are 7 small cars, and we have 7 medium-sized cars and 7 large cars. In total, there are 21 cars in this data set. And each one happens to have 33.3%, and we have 100% of data being considered. So that's the very simple analysis we can do by using SPSS. Okay, over next, we would like to take a look at the website of Slave Voyages. This is going to be the database you'll be using for your SPSS project. So let's just go www.slavevoyages.org. You can find a link on my courses as well. So this website gives you the information about the slave voyages, transatlantic slave trades, which you can use this. So next, we would like to explore the slavevoyages.org. So you can open any website, any web browser, and then type slavevoyages.org. This website gives you a lot of resources to do research on the slave trade, transatlantic. The first thing we want to do is we want to search the database for the data that we can work on. So we'll just simply click the Search the Voyages database, and it shows that we have 36,001 voyages to be included in this data set. This is going from the year of 1514 to the year of 1866. This database includes all those time frame from 1514 to 1866. Suppose we want to limit our search to 100 year frame. Then we can change, say, let's do 1600 to 1699. And we do search. This will shrink the number of voyages we are doing, working on to 3,370. But still, that's a lot of data. So what we can do is sometimes you can manipulate the basic variables, such as the ship nation owners, voyage outcome, itinerary. So let me just show you. Suppose I want to say the itinerary to limit where the voyages began. If you click this one, you will have something to pick for the place where voyages began. So we can select. Suppose I'm interested in those voyages that is began from Europe and also Spanish mainland Americas. Okay, hit OK and search. This time it will come down to 1,849 voyages. You may put in more constraints, such as the outcome of voyages for slaves. So what's going to be the outcome? Suppose you're interested in those voyages where slaves perished with ship. Okay, hit OK, and then search again. This time we come down to 16 voyages with those data. Okay, so for those 16 voyages, we can show them all. So we can change the number of results that's shown on per page. I can change that to 20. And each particular outcome is going to give you the information on that particular voyage. So by doing this, you can see all the 16 results in one page. Next, we would like to download this into SPSS, but right before we download it, we might want to know which variables we would like to include, such as the voyage identification number or vessel name and year like arrived with slaves. We can simply click configure columns of the table to make sure which variables I want to do. Okay, so you would arrive on this page, give you two boxes. So the first one, choose the groups of variables. Suppose I want to know what's the flag of the ship and what is the standardized tonnage of the ship. I can also give some information such as the voyage itinerary, where this voyage began. Okay. And what is the basic place of slave purchase. And we can also choose some numbers, okay, slave numbers, such as what is the total slaves embarked and number of slaves arriving at first place of landing, or you can just do total slaves disembarked, okay. As well as some of the characteristics we want to do, such as percentage of children, percentage of men and women, and apply configuration. Once you apply configuration, you've got a new table with those variables you have picked, like year arrived with slaves, the flag, standardized tonnage. Not all the columns have a lot of data though. Okay, like the percentage of children, we have a lot of missed data, missing values. Total slaves disembarked, we have most of the data, but except for 3 of those voyages. So what we can do next is download all results. And on my computer, it shows downloading it as one Excel file. Okay, I can open this. So I can open this Excel file and edit right before we want to import this into SPSS. So we need to choose Enable Editing. And the very top, the first row talks about what has been included, some of very brief information. So we don't need this for importing into SPSS. So let's simply delete this row and then save. And you can save this as one Excel file on an easy place that you can find. For convenience, I'm just putting that into desktop, but you can definitely put that into some folders that you have put in this for this course. So you can do, say, I can say slave trade, save. Okay. Once you have saved this file, you may want to close the Excel file. So over next, we'll be going back to SPSS and import the data that we have saved in this Excel file. So you open SPSS and you go File, Import Data from Excel. And you can find in the folder that Excel file. In my case, it's going to be slave trade, and hit Open. This will give you a very brief view of that data set in SPSS. You can see on the very top is the variable names, and to the bottom, that's those data. So that is what we want. So hit OK. And we can have a very brief view of these data set. Okay. Everything looks normal except for some of the percentage. We have a bunch of missing data. And here's the variable view, right? That's what we have talked about. Some of these are numeric, some of those are strings. Okay. But even if it's numeric, it doesn't mean that this has to be a quantitative data. Okay. Alright, so next we would like to do some simple analysis. Suppose we want to know nation's IMP. By the way, if you look at these names, it doesn't have a specific label, so we need to put some labels in it. For those labels, you can go back to that slatevoyages.org to see what columns you have picked, and you may put these information into the labels. Okay, so like after comparison, you can see the voyage ID means it's actually the voyage identification number. Ship name is actually the vessel name, and captain represents the captain's name. So let's suppose we're working on this nation IMP string. That is actually the flag. Okay. Therefore, we can do some similar analysis as we just did before for that car crash data set. I can look at this flags, ship flag. We know ship flag comes from Europe, but these are the specific areas. So I can take a look at a simple analysis. So analyze, and then descriptive statistics, and then I do frequencies. Okay. I can move this flag to the right, and then ask it to display frequency table. Hit OK, and this is going to be the outcome. Tells us we have 16 flags to be considered. None of those are missing. And for the 16, we have one from Great Britain, and then 8 from Portugal, and 2 from Spain. In total, there are 16 vessels, 16 slave trade ships to be considered in this case. So in the end, that is the very simple analysis you can do for the frequency distribution table. Look at the frequencies. So in the end, do not forget to save your SPSS file. So when we save it, we can save it as .sav file. And again, you can put that back into your folder. So I'm going to say slave train and hit save. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial for the introduction of SPSS. Once again, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.